They said she was broken. They said she was barren. King Alaric didn't just reject her. He destroyed her in front of the entire Stone Moon pack, casting her out into the winter snow with nothing but the clothes on her back. 5 years later, he thought it would be amusing to invite her to his son's heir ceremony, a final twist of the knife to show her the happiness she could never give him. He expected a broken woman to weep at his feet, but when the doors swung open, the king didn't see a beggar. He saw a queen, and she wasn't alone. Holding her hand was a boy with the king's own golden eyes. The game has changed, Alaric. Checkmate. The envelope was made of heavy, cream-colored cardstock, embossed with the gold crest of the Stone Moon pack. It sat on the scarred oak table of Seraphina's small apartment in downtown Seattle, like an unexploded bomb. Seraphina Blackwood stared at it, her coffee growing cold in her hands. It had been 5 years. 5 years of silence. 5 years of rebuilding a soul that had been shattered into dust. And now this. She didn't need to open it to know what it was. The gossip had reached even her ears, hundreds of miles away from the Packlands. King Alaric Stone, the Alpha of Alphas, was finally celebrating the presentation of his heir, the child he had with Isabella. The child Seraphina was told she could never give him. Her hand trembled slightly as she reached out, her fingers brushing the wax seal. She ripped it open. By order of King Alaric Stone and Queen Isabella, you are cordially invited to the presentation ceremony of their son, the Crown Prince Caden. Your presence is anticipated. Not requested. Anticipated. It was a summons. But more than that, it was a taunt. The memories she had locked away in the deepest dungeons of her mind began to bleed through. She was 21 again. She was standing in the center of the grand hall, the marble floor cold against her bare knees. You are useless to me, Seraphina. Alaric's voice had been devoid of warmth, stripped of the love that had been there only days before. He sat on his throne, looking down at her like she was a stain on his carpet. An Alpha King needs an heir. Dr. Aris has confirmed it 3 times. You are barren, a dried-up river. You will doom my line. Alaric! Please, she had begged, tears blurring her vision. We are fated. The moon goddess doesn't make mistakes. We can try. I am done trying, he had roared, the sound shaking the chandeliers. He gestured to the woman standing beside him. Isabella. Beautiful, voluptuous, smirking Isabella. Isabella is already with child. My child. She has proven her worth. You have proven nothing but your defectiveness. The rejection that followed was the most brutal in the history of the Northern Packs. He hadn't just severed the bond. He had used Alpha Command to force her submission while he ripped the mating mark from her neck with his teeth, replacing it with a scar of shame. He exiled her that night, during a blizzard. Seraphina touched her neck instinctively. The scar was gone now, covered by a tattoo of a phoenix rising from ash. But the phantom pain remained. Mummy? The soft voice broke her trance. Seraphina turned, her eyes softening instantly. Standing in the doorway of her bedroom, clutching a stuffed wolf toy, was Leo. He was 4 years old, with messy dark hair and eyes that were a startling, piercing gold. The same gold as Alaric's. She had been pregnant when he threw her out. She hadn't known it yet. Or perhaps Dr. Aris had lied about more than just her fertility. She had survived the blizzard only because a rogue bear shifter, an old woman named Martha, had found her half frozen and taken her in. Hey, baby, Seraphina whispered, sweeping Leo into her arms. He smelled like milk and lavender. Why are you sad? Leo asked, touching her cheek with his small hand. I'm not sad, Leo, she lied, forcing a smile. Just thinking. About the bad man? Seraphina's heart clenched. She had never told Leo about his father. She simply said his father was away. But Leo was smart. Too smart. She looked back at the invitation. Alaric wanted to rub her face in it. He wanted to see the barren reject wither in the presence of his perfect family. He wanted to prove to the council, and perhaps to himself, that he made the right choice. If she didn't go, he would send trackers. He would hunt her down just to drag her there. The invitation was a warning. I know where you are. A cold, steely resolve settled in her chest. She wasn't the weak, begging girl of 21 anymore. She was the CEO of a rising tech startup. She was a mother. She was a survivor. Leo, she said softly, smoothing his hair. Do you want to go on a trip? To see where Mummy grew up? Leo's eyes widened. Can I bring Mr. Wolf? You can bring whatever you want, Serafina said, her voice dropping to a dangerous whisper as she looked at the gold crest one last time. We're going to a party. She grabbed her phone and dialed a number. Martha, it's Sarah. I need you to book a jet. And call that stylist in Milan you told me about, the one who owes you a favor. I need a dress that says, I'm going to burn your kingdom down. The Stone Moonpack estate was less of a house and more of a fortress. Nestled in the mountains of Colorado, it was a sprawling complex of stone and timber that screamed power. Tonight, it was lit up like a beacon. Luxury cars lined the winding driveway. Bentleys, Rolls-Royces, armored SUVs. The elite of the werewolf world had gathered. Inside the grand ballroom, the atmosphere was suffocatingly opulent. Crystal chandeliers the size of small cars dripped light onto the guests. Champagne flowed like water. King Alaric Stone stood near the dais, a glass of whiskey in his hand. He looked older than his 30 years. There were streaks of grey in his temples, and lines of stress bracketed his mouth. He was undeniably handsome, radiating raw alpha power. But there was a hardness to him now that hadn't been there 5 years ago. Beside him, Isabella preened. She wore a dress of crimson silk that clung to every curve, diamonds dripping from her neck. She held the hand of a small boy, Caden. Caden was 5. He was a cute child with brown hair and brown eyes. He looked exactly like Isabella. He looked nothing like Alaric. Stop fidgeting, Isabella hissed at the boy, yanking his arm. Stand up straight. The council is watching. Isabella, Alaric warned, his voice a low rumble. He is a child. He is the heir, she snapped back, her voice lowered so the nearby guests wouldn't hear. He needs to act like it. We don't want people remembering her. Alaric's jaw tightened. She won't come. You sent the invite, Isabella scoffed, sipping her wine. Sadistic of you, really. I love it. I want to see her face when she realizes she's nothing. I want her to see that I gave you what she never could. It wasn't about cruelty, Alaric lied to himself. It was about closure. Sure, darling. Whatever helps you sleep. Suddenly the chatter in the room died down. The hush started at the back near the massive double doors and swept forward like a wave. The orchestra faltered and stopped. What is it? Alaric snapped, looking towards the entrance. Why has the music stopped? The beta, Silas, hurried over, looking pale. Alpha, you need to see this. The heavy oak doors groaned as they were pushed open by 2 guards who looked visibly shaken. The woman who stepped through was not the Serafina Alaric remembered. The Serafina of his memories was soft, wearing simple cotton dresses, her hair usually in a messy bun. She was pretty, yes, but in a quiet, unassuming way. The woman standing in the doorway was a goddess of vengeance. She wore a gown of midnight blue velvet, blacker than the abyss, with a slit that ran up to her thigh. The bodice was encrusted with sapphires that caught the light like stars. Her hair, once a mousy brown, was now a rich, glossy chestnut, cascading in waves down her back. Her makeup was sharp, accentuating her high cheekbones and eyes that burned with cold intelligence. She didn't walk, she glided. Her head was held high, her posture perfect. She radiated a luna's aura, powerful enough to make the lower-ranked wolves in the room instinctively bare their necks. But it was who she was holding hands with that stopped Alaric's heart in his chest. Walking beside her, looking bored and unimpressed by the crowd, was a small boy in a miniature tuxedo. The boy looked up, scanning the room. When the light hit his face, a collective gasp ripped through the hall. He had Alaric's nose, he had Alaric's jawline, and he had Alaric's eyes. Those unmistakable, rare, golden eyes of the royal stone bloodline. Isabella dropped her wineglass. It shattered on the marble floor, the red liquid staining the white stone like blood. "Impossible," she whispered, her face draining of color. Serafina walked straight down the center of the aisle, the crowd parting for her like the Red Sea. She didn't look at the guests. She didn't look at the council. Her eyes were locked on Alaric. She stopped 10 feet from the throne. The silence was so heavy, it felt like physical pressure. Alaric couldn't breathe. He felt like he had been punched in the gut. He looked at the boy, then at Serafina, then back at the boy. The scent. Even from here, under the expensive perfume and the crowd, he could smell it. Vanilla and pine. The scent of his blood. "Serafina," Alaric choked out, his voice unrecognizable. Serafina smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. It was a smile that promised pain. "King Alaric," she said, her voice clear and melodious, ringing through the silent hall. "Thank you for the invitation. It's been a long time." She looked down at Leo. "Leo, say hello to the king." Leo looked at the tall man with the terrified expression. He tilted his head, the movement eerily similar to Alaric's own mannerisms. "Hello," Leo said. Then he looked at Serafina. "Mummy, is this the party? It's very quiet." "It's about to get louder, sweetheart," Serafina murmured. Isabella recovered from her shock, her survival instincts kicking in. She marched down the steps, her face twisted in a snarl. "Who do you think you are?" Isabella screeched, pointing a manicured finger at Serafina. "Crashing a royal ceremony and bringing some bastard child to mock us?" Serafina laughed. It was a dark, rich sound. "Mock you? Isabella, I was invited." "And as for the child," she paused, letting the tension ratchet up to a breaking point. She looked directly at Alaric. "I thought it was only polite to bring the king's firstborn son to his brother's ceremony. After all, family is everything, isn't it, Alaric?" The room exploded into chaos. "Liar!" Isabella screamed. "She is Barren. Dr. Aris proved it. That brat is a mongrel she picked up off the street." "Dr. Aris," Serafina repeated, tasting the name like poison. "Yes, is the good doctor here tonight?" She scanned the crowd and found him trying to slink away near the buffet table. Dr. Aris, a short, balding man with shifty eyes, froze as Serafina pointed him out. "Dr. Aris," she called out, "why don't you come tell the king about the test results from 5 years ago? Or should I show him the bank transfers I found from Isabella's father to your offshore account?" Alaric's head snapped toward Dr. Aris. The alpha growl that tore from his throat shook the windows. "Is this true?" Alaric demanded, stepping off the dais, his eyes glowing red. Isabella grabbed Alaric's arm. "Don't listen to her. She's a witch. She's trying to trick you." Serafina stepped forward, shielding Leo behind her silk skirt. "I am willing to submit my son to a paternity blood oath right now in front of the council," she challenged. "Are you willing to do the same for yours, Isabella?" She looked at the brown-eyed boy, Caden, who was cowering behind Isabella's dress. "Strange," Serafina mused, her voice dropping to a lethal whisper. "The stone bloodline has had golden eyes for 500 years. Dominant traits, and yet your heir has the eyes of— Who is it? The captain of the guard?" Isabella turned white. Alaric looked at Caden, really looked at him. For 5 years he had ignored the whispers. He had ignored the lack of connection. He had ignored the fact that Caden smelled faintly of another wolf. He had blinded himself because he needed an heir, and he needed to believe he hadn't destroyed his true mate for nothing. But looking at Leo, this boy who was his mirror image, the blindfold was ripped away. "Guards," Alaric said, his voice deadly calm. "Seal the doors. No one leaves." The silence in the grand ballroom was no longer heavy. It was brittle, ready to shatter at the slightest touch. The air smelled of ozone and distress, the pheromones of hundreds of anxious wolves. Alaric stood frozen, his chest heaving. The alpha in him was screaming to tear throats out, to destroy everything in his path, but the king in him knew he had to maintain control. If he lost it now, the pack would descend into anarchy. Elder Thomas, Alaric's voice was a low growl that vibrated in the floorboards. Bring the chalice of truth. Elder Thomas, the oldest wolf in the Stone Moon pack, hobbled forward. He was a man of 80, stooped and grey, but his eyes were sharp. He carried a velvet-wrapped box. He looked from Serafina to Isabella with a mixture of pity and judgment. "No, that is turn," Isabella shrieked, clutching Caden so tight the boy whimpered. "You cannot do this, Alaric. This is an insult. I am your queen." "If you are my queen, and he is my heir, you have nothing to fear," Alaric said, his eyes cold as ice. He turned to the guards. "Seize Dr. Aris. If he tries to shift, break his legs." 2 burly guards descended on the trembling doctor, dragging him to the center of the room and forcing him to his knees. Serafina remained calm, a statue of vengeance carved from ice. She crouched down to Leo's level. "Leo, darling," she said softly, ignoring the hundreds of eyes on them. "This nice old man is going to prick your finger. It will hurt just like a bug bite, okay? Can you be brave for Mummy?" Leo puffed out his chest, trying to look tough. "I'm an alpha, Mummy. I don't cry." Alaric flinched. "I'm an alpha." The boy knew what he was, even without a pack. Elder Thomas set a heavy silver chalice on a pedestal in the center of the room. It was an ancient artifact, enchanted by the moon goddess herself centuries ago. It didn't just test DNA. It tested the soul, the lineage, and the intent. "The king first," Elder Thomas rasped. Alaric stepped forward. He took the ceremonial obsidian dagger and sliced his palm without hesitation. Thick, dark blood welled up and dripped into the chalice. The liquid inside the bowl swirled, turning a deep, vibrant crimson. "Now the boy," Thomas said, gesturing to Caden. Isabella was shaking her head frantically. No, he's sick. He can't." "Isabella," Alaric said. He didn't shout. He didn't need to. The Alpha Command laced his tone, invisible chains wrapping around her will. "Bring him!" Sobbing, Isabella was forced by the command to step forward. She held Caden's hand out. The boy was crying now, terrified by his mother's fear. Elder Thomas was gentle, a quick prick to the finger. A single drop of blood fell into the Alaric's blood in the chalice. The room held its breath. If Caden was Alaric's son, the blood would merge and glow gold. The drop hit the crimson pool. It didn't merge. It sat on the surface like oil on water, turning a muddy, ugly brown before fizzling out with a scent like rotten eggs. A collective gasp echoed through the room. "Rejection," Elder Thomas announced, his voice ringing out like a judgment bell. "The blood does not recognize its kin. The boy is not of the stone bloodline." Isabella collapsed to her knees, wailing. The illusion she had built for 5 years shattered in seconds. Alaric stared at the chalice, his face a mask of shock. He looked at Caden, the boy he had raised, the boy he had tried to love, and felt a hollow pit open in his stomach. It wasn't hatred for the child. It was a devastating realization of the lie he had lived. "And now," Elder Thomas said, turning to Serafina, "the challenger." Serafina stood up, leading Leo to the pedestal. She didn't look at Alaric. She focused entirely on her son. "Hand, baby," she whispered. Leo extended his small hand. The elder pricked his finger. The drop of blood fell. The moment it touched Alaric's blood, the reaction was violent. The liquid didn't just glow, it erupted. A beam of pure, blinding golden light shot up from the chalice, illuminating the painted ceiling of the ballroom. The energy wave knocked the nearby wine glasses off the tables. The scent of pine and vanilla, the royal scent, flooded the hall, overwhelming and undeniable. The wolf spirit within every shifter in the room recognized it instantly. This wasn't just a son. This was a true alpha, a born king. Alaric fell to his knees. Tears, hot and unbidden, streamed down his face. He looked at Leo through the golden light, seeing the irrefutable truth. "My son," Alaric whispered, reaching a hand out, trembling. Leo looked at the man on his knees, then back at his mother. He didn't move toward Alaric. He stepped back, wrapping his arms around Serafina's leg. "Mommy," Leo said loud enough for the front rows to hear. "Why is the bad man crying?" The words hit Alaric harder than any physical blow. The bad man. Serafina placed a protective hand on Leo's head. She looked down at Alaric, her expression devoid of the love that used to be there. "He's crying, Leo," she said coldly, because he just realized he threw away a diamond to pick up a rock. She reached into a clutch and pulled out a thick envelope. She tossed it onto the floor in front of Alaric. It landed with a heavy thud next to his knees. "The bank records," she stated, addressing the council members who were now crowding around. "Dr. Aris was paid $5 million to falsify my medical records. Isabella was never pregnant when you exiled me. She got pregnant 2 months later, by her lover." Alaric looked up, his eyes shifting from gold to a murderous red. He slowly turned his head toward Isabella. "Who?" he asked. A single word. A death sentence. Isabella was sobbing, her makeup running down her face in grotesque streaks. "I did it for us. You needed an heir. She was useless. I loved you, Alaric." "Who?" Alaric roared, the sound cracking the plaster on the walls. Isabella's eyes darted to the side, toward the exit where the royal guards were stationed. One guard was backing away, his hand on his weapon. Cale, the captain of the guard, Alaric's best friend since childhood, the man who had stood beside him when he rejected Serafina. Alaric stood up. The betrayal was complete. His mate, his best friend, his doctor. They had all conspired to destroy his life. "Cale," Alaric said, the betrayal making his voice sound like grinding glass. Cale drew his sword, panic in his eyes. "She promised me the beta position. She said Serafina was weak. The pack needed strength. So you stole my life?" Alaric stepped forward, the air around him crackling with ozone. But before Alaric could move, Serafina spoke. "Stop!" It wasn't a shout. It was a command. And surprisingly, Alaric stopped. He turned to her, panting. "Do not stain my son's eyes with blood tonight," Serafina said calmly. "This is not a slaughterhouse. It is a ceremony. And we are leaving." She turned on her heel, taking Leo's hand. "Come, Leo. The party is over." "Wait." Alaric lunged forward, not to attack, but to reach her. "Serafina, please, you can't leave. He is my son. You are my—" She spun around, her eyes flashing. "Your what? Your mate? You rejected me, Alaric. You broke the bond. You exiled me to die in the snow. I am nothing to you." "I was deceived," Alaric pleaded, desperation clawing at his throat. "I didn't know." "You didn't trust," she corrected him, her voice trembling with suppressed rage. "You trusted a piece of paper over the woman you claimed to love. You trusted her," she pointed at Isabella, "over your fated mate. Ignorance is not an excuse, Alaric. It is a choice." She turned back to the door. The crowd parted instantly, terrified of the drama and the power radiating from her. "Serafina!" Alaric shouted, taking a step to follow. "Take one step," she warned, "and you will never see him again. I have lawyers, Alaric. I have the press. I have the sympathy of every pack in the Alliance. If you try to take him by force, I will burn your reputation until there is nothing left but ash." She walked out the double doors, the golden-eyed boy trotting beside her, leaving the king standing in the wreckage of his own kingdom. 3 days. It had been 3 days since the disastrous ceremony. The scandal was the only thing playing on the Wolf News network. The Stone Moon Deception, they called it. The Stone Moon Pack was in shambles. King Alaric had spent the last 72 hours cleaning house. It had been brutal and efficient. Isabella was in the dungeons. She had been stripped of her title, her jewels, and her pack status. She was now an Omega, awaiting trial for treason and fraud. Caden, the innocent pawn in her game, had been sent to live with Isabella's distant relatives in the Southern Isles. Alaric couldn't bear to look at the boy, not because he hated him, but because every time he saw Caden, he saw his own stupidity. "Cale," The captain of the guard was gone. He had tried to fight his way out that night. Alaric had broken his arm and banished him. Death was too easy. Exile, the same fate they had forced on Serafina, was a more fitting punishment. Dr. Aris had vanished before the guards could get him to a cell, likely killed by Kale to silence him or hiding in a hole somewhere. Alaric had a bounty on his head, but none of that mattered. Alaric sat in his study, a bottle of amber whiskey open on the desk. The room was dark, lit only by the dying embers of the fireplace. He held a photo in his hand. It was a paparazzi shot taken outside the estate that night. It showed Serafina lifting Leo into a black SUV. The fierce protectiveness on her face, the way Leo clung to her. It broke him. "You look like hell, brother." Alaric didn't look up. He knew the voice. It was Silas, his beta, the only man he had left. "I feel like hell," Alaric muttered. "Have you found where she's staying?" "She's at the Four Seasons in downtown Seattle," Silas said, pouring himself a drink. "Penthouse suite. She's not hiding, Alaric. She's daring you to come." "She hates me," Alaric said, tracing the face of his son in the photo. "Can you blame her?" Silas sat down opposite him. "You didn't just break her heart. You broke her life. If Martha hadn't found her—" "Don't," Alaric slammed his fist on the desk. "I know. God, do you think I don't know? I dream about it. Her walking into the blizzard. I thought I was doing what was right for the pack. I thought—" "You thought with your crown, not your heart," Silas said bluntly. "So what are you going to do? Sit here and drink until you rot? Or are you going to fix it?" "She said if I came near her, she'd destroy me." "She's angry. She's hurt." "But she came back," Silas pointed out. "She could have stayed hidden forever. She could have raised Leo in Europe or Asia, and you never would have known. Why did she come back?" Alaric looked up, a flicker of hope in his eyes. "Revenge, maybe. Or maybe because a wolf needs its pack, and a pup needs its father, even if the father is an idiot." Silas downed his drink. "You can't demand her submission, Alaric. You can't command her like a king. You have to earn her like a man. You have to woo her, and you're starting from -1,000. Alaric stood up. He walked to the window, looking out at the moonlit forest. "I need to see him," Alaric whispered. "I need to tell him I didn't know." "Then go," Silas said, "but leave the crown here. Serafina doesn't care about the king. The king hurt her. Send Alaric. _______________________ The lobby of the Four Seasons was elegant and quiet. Alaric walked in, wearing a simple pair of jeans and a black sweater. No royal guard. No entourage. Just a man. He approached the front desk. Serafina Blackwood. The receptionist, a human woman who didn't know who he was, typed on her computer. "I'm sorry. Miss Blackwood has a do not disturb order on her room. I can't ring her." "Please," Alaric said, resting his hands on the counter. He pushed a $100 bill across the marble. "Just tell her. Tell her the man with the regrets is here." The receptionist hesitated, then picked up the phone. She spoke quietly, paused, and then hung up. "She says she's busy." Alaric closed his eyes. He expected this. "Did she say anything else?" "She said—" The receptionist looked uncomfortable. "She said if you want to see her, you can make an appointment with her assistant like everyone else. Her next opening is in 3 weeks. Alaric let out a dry, humorless laugh. She was treating him like a business associate. It was a cold, calculated insult. "Fine," Alaric said. He turned to walk away, but stopped. He pulled a small velvet pouch from his pocket. Inside was an ancient amulet, a family heirloom meant for the heir, protection against dark magic. He turned back to the receptionist. "Can you ensure this gets to her room? Tell her it's for Leo. No strings attached. Just safety." The receptionist nodded. "I can do that." Alaric walked out of the hotel and sat on a bench across the street. He wasn't leaving. He would wait. If it took all night, if it took 3 weeks, he would wait. As he sat there, the cold wind biting his face, a black limousine pulled up to the hotel entrance. Alaric watched, curious. A man stepped out of the limo. He was tall, with slicked-back blonde hair and an expensive Italian suit. He carried a massive bouquet of red roses. Alaric stiffened. He recognized the man. It was Alpha Damien of the River Claw pack, a notorious playboy, wealthy, charming, and Alaric's biggest rival in the business world. Damien strode into the hotel like he owned it. 5 minutes later, Alaric watched with mounting horror as Serafina walked out of the elevators into the lobby. She was wearing a stunning silver cocktail dress. She greeted Damien with a warm smile, a smile she hadn't given Alaric in years. Damien handed her the flowers, then leaned in and kissed her on the cheek. Serafina laughed at something he said, brushing a hand against his arm. Jealousy, hot and toxic, exploded in Alaric's chest. His wolf snarled, demanding he tear Damien apart. She moved on. A voice in his head whispered, "While you were playing house with a traitor, she built a life without you." Damien offered his arm, and Serafina took it. They walked out of the hotel, past where Alaric was sitting in the shadows. They didn't see him. "You look breathtaking, Sarah," Damien said, his voice carrying on the wind. "I've booked the entire rooftop at Le Monde." "You spoil me, Damien," Serafina replied, her voice light and happy. Alaric watched them get into the limo. As the car pulled away, he felt a pain sharper than the rejection bond. He hadn't just lost her trust. He was losing her to someone else. He pulled out his phone and dialed Silas. "Pack your bags, Silas," Alaric said, his voice grim. "We're staying in Seattle." "Why? What happened?" "I have competition," Alaric snarled, "and I'm going to crush him." Seattle's elite gathered at the Skyview Gala, a charity event hosted by Serafina's tech company, Phoenix Innovations. The room was a sea of designer tuxedos and couture gowns, set against the backdrop of the city lights, through floor-to-ceiling glass walls. Serafina stood at the center of it all, a vision in emerald green silk. She held a champagne flute, laughing at something Alpha Damien whispered in her ear. Damien looked smug. He had his hand possessively on the small of her back, a gesture that screamed, "Mine," to anyone watching, and Alaric was watching. He stood in the shadows near the bar, nursing a sparkling water. He hadn't been invited, but when you are the king of the Northern Alliance, doors tend to open whether people want them to or not. "He's touching her," Silas growled low in his throat, standing beside Alaric. "Do you want me to remove his hand?" "No," Alaric said, his jaw tight enough to snap steel. "If I make a scene, I prove I'm the monster she thinks I am. I have to play this differently." "The auction is starting," Silas noted. Serafina took the stage. She spoke with passion about the charity, a foundation for rogue wolves and single mothers, the very people who had helped her survive. "Our final item tonight," the auctioneer announced, "is a rare First-Era manuscript on Lycan history. Bidding starts at $50,000. "60, Damien called out, raising his paddle. He grinned at Serafina. He was rich, flashy, and knew she wanted the book for her personal library. 70, a voice called from the back. The room turned. Alaric stepped out of the shadows. The air pressure in the room seemed to drop. Serafina's smile vanished. Her grip on the podium tightened until her knuckles turned white. Damien's eyes narrowed. 80,000. 100,000, Alaric said calmly, not taking his eyes off Serafina. 150, Damien challenged, his ego bruising. $500,000, Alaric stated. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Damien choked on his drink. $500,000 for a book? It was a power move, a declaration almost someone of war. Going once, going twice. Sold to King Alaric Stone, the auctioneer squeaked, banging the gavel. Alaric walked up to the stage. He ignored the auctioneer and stopped in front of Serafina. The scent of her, jasmine and rain, hit him like a drug. He wanted to pull her into his arms, to beg, to explain. Instead, he maintained a respectful distance. "For the Foundation," Alaric said, his voice rough with suppressed emotion. "And the book is for Leo. I hear he likes stories about the old kings." Serafina looked at him, her blue eyes icy. "You think you can buy forgiveness, Alaric?" "I know I can't," he replied softly, so only she could hear. "I'm just trying to clear the weeds so I can plant something new." "There is no soil left here for you," she hissed. "Leave. You are ruining my night. I'm not leaving Seattle, Serafina. Not while my son is here. He's my son. He is ours. And whether you hate me or not, he has a target on his back because of who I am. I'm staying to ensure he survives the fallout of my mistakes." Before Serafina could retort, Damien stepped between them, puffing out his chest. "The lady asked you to leave, Stone," Damien sneered. "Or do we need to take this outside?" Alaric looked at Damien. It was like a lion looking at a house cat. "Step aside, Damien," Alaric warned. "You are out of your depth." "I'm the one she chose," Damien retorted, smiling cruelly. "I'm the one who reads Leo bedtime stories. I'm the one she wakes up next to." It was a lie. Serafina had never let Damien stay the night, but it had the intended effect. Alaric's eyes flashed red. His control snapped. He grabbed Damien by the lapels of his expensive suit and slammed him against the nearest pillar. The drywall cracked. Guests screamed. Security rushed forward in but froze when Alaric let out a low, menacing growl that vibrated through the floor. "You play house with my mate," Alaric snarled into Damien's face. "But if you ever disrespect her or fail to protect her, I will end your bloodline." "Alaric, stop!" Serafina shouted, pulling at his arm. Sparks flew where skin touched skin, the mate bond reacting violently to the contact. Alaric froze. He looked down at Serafina's hand on his arm. He released Damien, who slumped to the floor, gasping for air. Alaric stepped back, straightening his jacket. He looked at Serafina with haunted eyes. "I apologize for the disruption," he said formally. "I will wire the money in the morning." He turned and walked out, taking all the air in the room with him. Serafina watched him go, her heart hammering against her ribs. She looked at Damien, who was dusting himself off and cursing. For the first time, she noticed Damien wasn't checking to see if she was okay. He was checking his suit for tears. "Brute," Damien muttered. "He's unstable, Sierra. You need to get a restraining order." Serafina didn't answer. She was still feeling the electric shock from where she had touched Alaric. The bond wasn't dead. It was dormant, and it had just woken up screaming. Underscore, 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 underscore. The next day, Serafina took Leo to the park, near the Space Needle. She needed air. She needed to think. Leo ran towards the jungle gym, his laughter bright and innocent. Serafina sat on a bench, watching him. He climbs well. Good balance. Serafina didn't jump. She had smelled him coming. Pine and vanilla. Alaric sat on the other end of the bench. He didn't look at her. He watched Leo. He was wearing a baseball cap and a hoodie, trying to blend in, but he was too big, too intense to be invisible. "Are you stalking me, Alaric?" she asked tiredly. "I'm guarding him," Alaric corrected. "Isabella's father, Lord Vane, is not happy about his daughter being in a dungeon. He has connections. Mercenaries." Serafina stiffened. "I have security." "You have mole cops," Alaric scoffed gently. "Vane hires Wolfbane mercenaries. They use silver bullets and Wolfsbane gas. Your security wouldn't last 10 seconds. Serafina looked at Leo, fear clutching her heart. "Why didn't you tell me?" "I am telling you now. I have 6 guards in the perimeter. You won't see them, but they are there." Silence stretched between them. "Does he know?" Alaric asked, nodding toward Leo. "He knows his father is a king," Serafina said. "He knows his father sent us away because he made a mistake. I didn't tell him you were cruel. I didn't want him to hate himself." Alaric turned to look at her, his eyes shimmering with tears. "You are a better person than I am, Serafina. If roles were reversed, I would have painted you as a monster. I didn't do it for you," she said sharply. "I did it for Leo. He deserves to be proud of his heritage. Can I?" Alaric's voice broke. "Can I say hello?" Serafina looked at the man who had destroyed her life. She saw the lines of grief on his face, the grey in his hair. He looked like a man serving a life sentence. "Leo," she called out. Leo ran over, panting. He stopped when he saw Alaric. "It's the crying man from the party." Alaric let out a wet chuckle. "Hello, Leo. My name is Alaric." Leo tilted his head. "Mummy says you're the king." "I am." "Where is your crown?" "I left it at home," Alaric said, leaning forward, elbows on his knees. "Crowns are heavy. Sometimes they make you can't see straight." Leo looked at him with those piercing golden eyes. "Are you my dad?" The question hung in the air. "Yes," Alaric whispered. "I am." "Why didn't you come to my birthdays?" Leo asked. No anger, just pure curiosity. Alaric looked as if he'd been shot. He took a shaky breath. "Because I was lost, Leo. I was very, very lost. And I was stupid. But I'm here now, and I'm never going to miss another one if you'll let me come." Leo looked at Serafina for permission. She gave a microscopic nod. "Okay," Leo said. Then he reached into his pocket and pulled out a sticky, half-melted gummy bear. "You can have this. It's red. Red is the best flavor." Alaric took the gummy bear like it was the Hope Diamond. "Thank you, Leo. I'm gonna go slide now." Leo ran off. Alaric sat there, holding the candy in his massive palm, and wept silently. Serafina felt a crack in the wall she had built around her heart. Just a hairline fracture, but it was there. "Don't make me regret this, Alaric," she warned. "I won't," he swore. "I will spend the rest of my life making up for the last 5 years." But the universe, it seemed, had other plans. Across the street, in a parked delivery van, a man with a scarred face watched through a telescopic lens. He spoke into a radio. "Target acquired. The king is with the pup. It complicates things," a crackling voice replied in his ear. "Take them both. Lord Vane wants the king's head on a platter alongside the bastard child. Execute the mother." "Copy that. Engaging in 3, 2. The attack began not with a shout, but with a sound like a popping balloon. Alaric's head snapped up. His instincts, honed by years of war, screamed danger a split second before the bullet impacted. He threw himself sideways, tackling Serafina off the bench just as the wood where her head had been splintered into 1,000 pieces. "Leo!" Alaric roared. 3 black vans screeched onto the curb surrounding the park. Men in tactical gear poured out, holding assault rifles loaded with silver rounds. "Get down!" Alaric shoved Serafina behind a thick oak tree. "Stay down! Leo is out there!" she screamed, struggling against his grip. "I will get him! Stay here!" Alaric didn't shift. It would take too long, and he would be a larger target. He sprinted across the open grass, moving with supernatural speed. "Grab the kid!" one of the mercenaries shouted. 2 men were running towards the jungle gym. Leo was frozen at the top of the slide, his eyes wide with terror. Alaric let out a roar that shattered the windows of nearby cars. He closed the distance, hitting the first mercenary like a freight train. The sound of bones breaking was sickeningly loud. He didn't stop. He grabbed the second man by the throat and threw him 20 feet into a metal swing set. "Daddy!" Leo screamed. Alaric vaulted up the slide, grabbing Leo and shielding the boy's small body with his own massive frame. Thwip, thwip, thwip. Silenced bullets thudded into Alaric's back. He grunted, his body jerking with each impact, but he didn't fall. The alpha strength was keeping him upright, but silver burned like liquid fire. "Hold on, Leo," Alaric gritted out, blood leaking from his mouth. He jumped down from the structure, landing in a crouch. "Kill the king!" the leader shouted. Suddenly, wolves erupted from the bushes, Alaric's hidden guards. They were outnumbered, but they were vicious. The park turned into a war zone. Where was Damien? Serafina looked around frantically from her hiding spot. She saw Damien's limousine parked down the street. It was speeding away. He had seen the guns and fled. Serafina felt a cold rage wash over her. Coward. She saw a mercenary flanking Alaric, aiming a tranquilizer rifle at Leo. Alaric was busy fighting two men with knives. He didn't see the flanker. Serafina didn't think. She ran. She wasn't a warrior. She was a mother. She tackled the mercenary from behind, sinking her teeth into his neck. It wasn't a shifted bite, but she was a wolf, and she was angry. The man screamed, dropping the rifle. He backhanded her, sending her flying into the dirt. He raised his pistol to her head. "Die, bitch!" A blur of darkness slammed into the man. It was Alaric. He had abandoned his defensive position to save her. He ripped the man's arm out of its socket with a sickening wet tear, then tossed him aside like trash. But in doing so, he had left himself open. The mercenary leader, perched on top of a van, took aim with a high-caliber sniper rifle. Bang! The shot echoed like thunder. Alaric stiffened. A bloom of red exploded from his chest, right near his heart. "Alaric!" Serafina screamed. He fell to his knees, his golden eyes losing focus. He looked at Serafina, then at Leo, who was cowering in the grass. "Silas!" Alaric choked out. Silas, in wolf form, tore the throat out of the sniper and shifted back, running to his king. The remaining mercenaries, seeing their leader dead and the royal guards closing in, scrambled into their vans and fled. Silence descended on the park, broken only by the wail of approaching sirens. Serafina crawled over to Alaric. He was lying on his back, his breath coming in bubbling gasps. The silver in the bullet was stopping his healing. "No, no, no!" Serafina pressed her hands against the wound, the hot blood seeping through her fingers. "You don't get to die. Do you hear me? You don't get the easy way out." Alaric looked up at her, a faint, bloody smile on his lips. "You called me." "Alaric!" "Shut up," she sobbed. "Save your strength. Leo? He's safe. He's right here." She pulled Leo closer. The boy was crying, holding Alaric's hand. "I kept my promise," Alaric whispered, his eyes fluttering shut. "I protected the pack." "Alaric!" Serafina shook him. "Stay with me!" His hand went limp in hers. "Get the car!" Serafina screamed at Silas, her voice cracking with pure terror. "We need to get the bullet out, now!" Underscore, 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 underscore. The safe house. 12 hours later. The room smelled of antiseptic and iron. Alaric lay on a bed in the secure underground clinic of the Seattle Pack, allies of the North. He was pale, hooked up to monitors. The surgery had taken 6 hours. The silver had been close to his heart. Serafina sat in a chair next to the bed. She hadn't washed. Her green dress was ruined, stained with the blood of the man she had sworn to hate. She watched the rise and fall of his chest. Why did it hurt so much? She wanted him to suffer, didn't she? She wanted him to pay. But not like this, her wolf whined. Not with his life. He had taken bullets for them. He had shielded Leo with his own body, and when she was in danger, he had left himself open to a kill shot just to save her. Damien had run. Alaric had stood. The door opened. Silas walked in, looking exhausted. "The threat is neutralized," Silas said quietly. "We tracked the mercenaries back to Vane. The council has already ordered Vane's execution. Isabella is being moved to a maximum security prison in the tundra." "Good," Serafina said, her voice hollow. "How is he?" "The doctor said if he was anyone else, he'd be dead. His alpha blood is the only thing keeping him alive." Silas sighed, leaning against the wall. "He loves you, Serafina. He has never stopped. Even when he was with Isabella, he was miserable. He kept your old sweaters in a locked chest because they still had your scent. He's an idiot and a fool, but he loves you." Serafina looked at Alaric's sleeping face. He rejected me, Silas, and he has died 1,000 deaths since then, trying to undo it. Today, he almost died a real one." There was a rustling from the bed. Alaric groaned, his eyelids flickering. Serafina jumped up. "Alaric!" His golden eyes opened slowly. They were hazy, drugged, but they found her instantly. "Sarah." His voice was a rasp. "I'm here," she said, taking his hand without thinking. "Leo?" "He's asleep in the next room. He's fine, not a scratch." Alaric let out a long breath, his body relaxing. "Good, good." He squeezed her hand weakly. Did Damien get away?" Serafina let out a dry laugh. "Damien ran away before the first shot was fired." "Remind me to send him a fruit basket," Alaric murmured, a ghost of his old arrogance surfacing. "You are impossible," Serafina said, tears leaking from her eyes. "Serafina." Alaric's gaze turned serious. I know this changes nothing. I know you can't forgive me. But I need you to know. The rejection, I am going to annul it." "You can't annul a rejection, Alaric." "I can," he wheezed. "I'm the king. I can rewrite the laws. I have already drafted the decree. It states that the rejection was based on fraud and is void. You are still my mate. Legally, if you want to be." He looked at her with such raw vulnerability, it made her chest ache. "And if I don't want to be?" she asked softly. "Then I will abdicate," he said simply. "I will give the crown to Leo, with you as regent, and I will walk away. I won't force you to be tied to me ever again." Serafina stared at him. He was offering to give up everything, his title, his power, his legacy, just to give her a choice. She looked at the monitor beeping steadily. She looked at their joined hands. The sparks were there, warm and healing. She leaned down, brushing a lock of hair off his sweaty forehead. "Don't abdicate just yet, Alaric," she whispered. "Leo is too young to rule, and," she paused, her breath hitching, "and he needs his father to teach him how to be a good king. Not the king you were, but the king you were today." Alaric's eyes widened. Hope, fragile and terrifying, bloomed in his chest. "Does that mean—" "It means," Serafina said, standing up and wiping her eyes, "that you are on probation, strict probation. You have a lot of groveling left to do, Stone. This is just the beginning." Alaric smiled, wincing as the movement pulled at his stitches. "I'm good at groveling. I'll make it an art form." Serafina walked to the door. She stopped and looked back. "Rest, Alaric. We have a long flight back to the Stone Moon Pack tomorrow." "We? I can't very well run a kingdom from Seattle, can I?" She closed the door. Alaric closed his eyes, and for the first time in 5 years, he slept without nightmares. Snow fell softly as the black convoy climbed the mountain road, echoing the night Serafina had once been cast away. This time she was warm and safe, wrapped in cashmere, her hand held by Alaric, the king who had once failed her. Ahead, the Stone Moon estate stood silent. Hundreds of wolves waited in the courtyard, aware of the truth, heavy with shame and expectation. Alaric stepped forward despite his wounds. Taking Serafina's hand, he led her onto the platform, where Elder Thomas stood beside the chained Isabella. Rage burned in Isabella's eyes, but Alaric ignored her. He confessed his past mistakes before the pack, his pride, his blindness, his betrayal of fate. He exposed the conspiracy that had destroyed Serafina's life and declared Isabella's punishment, exile without power or name. When Isabella was dragged away, silence fell. Then Alaric did the unthinkable. He knelt. Holding the iron crown, he admitted his failures and asked Serafina, not by destiny, but by choice, to stand beside him and rebuild what he had broken. Serafina saw his remorse, her son's hopeful smile, and the weary weight of old hatred. At last, she let it go. "I accept," she whispered. As the crown touched her brow, power surged and their bond reignited, stronger than before. The pack roared their loyalty. Under breaking sunlight, Alaric held his family close. The past had ended. A new beginning had risen from its ashes. And that is the story of Serafina and Alaric. It's a brutal reminder that sometimes the people who are meant to protect us are the ones who hurt us the most, but it's also a testament to the power of second chances and the undeniable strength of a mother's love. Alaric made the biggest mistake of his life, but he spent every moment after realizing it trying to make it right. What do you think? Did Alaric deserve forgiveness, or should Serafina have taken Leo and left him in the dust? It's a tough question. In the wolf world, the mate bond is absolute, but in the real world, trust is much harder to rebuild. If you enjoyed this roller coaster of betrayal, revenge, and redemption, please give this video a massive thumbs up. It really helps the channel. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss a new story. We have plenty more dramatic romances and supernatural thrillers coming your way. Thanks for listening.